Hello friends, this video on understanding numbers part 14 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. So now we will see that how do we round off the sum or difference of two numbers. So let us take this example. So let us suppose that we need to estimate the sum of these two numbers 12,904 and 2,888 using general rule. So we have to estimate means whatever sum we find out, that sum needs to be a rounded off number. So it should be a number that is like easy for calculations and easy to remember. Now, let us first try to add these numbers traditionally without any estimate, without rounding off, so that we can find out the exact sum, so that when we make the estimate, we can analyze that how close that estimate is to the actual sum. So let us traditionally add these two numbers. So the sum comes out to be 15,792. So this is the accurate sum. Let us now estimate. So in order to estimate, what we will do, we will round off both the numbers. So we will round off this number. We will also round off this number. So let us round off both the numbers to the nearest thousands. Why to the nearest thousands? Because when you look at these two numbers, both of them are in the range of thousands. One is 2,888, the other one is 12,904. Now, what would be the estimate for 12,904? Now, when you are estimating it to the nearest thousands, you can say that 12,904 would lie between 12,000 and 13,000. Somewhere between these two would be 12,500, and you have 12,900, which is definitely going to be closer to 13,000. So we can round off 12,904 as 13,000. Now let us talk about the next number, that is 2,888. Now this number would lie between 2,000 and 3,000. Now here the midpoint would be 2,500 and your number is 2,888, which might lie somewhere here. So this is also more close to 3,000. So we can estimate or round it off as 3,000. So basically this is how we have rounded off both the numbers, and now let us try to find their sum. So now we will add 13,000 and 3,000. So what do we get? We get 16,000. Now why did we initially add it traditionally? Just to see that are we getting a number that is close to the actual sum. So you see the actual sum was 15,792, which can be rounded off to 16,000, right? And that is what we have got here. So this is how we estimate the sum or difference of two numbers. Now, if you talk about the exact rules that need to be followed, so there are no rigid rules as such. So basically it depends on the degree of accuracy needed and how fast the estimate is needed. Now see, in this case, we could have, there was no hard and fast rule that I need to estimate it to the nearest thousands. Right? I could have estimated both the numbers to the nearest hundreds. I could have also estimated the two numbers to the nearest tens. So this was up to my wish, because nothing is mentioned that how do I need to estimate them. But if I round it off to the nearest tens, then the accuracy would be more, because when you are rounding it off to the nearest 10, so you are getting a more accurate number. So, but if I am rounding it off to the nearest 10, the disadvantage is that in that case, your process will become slower, because now you have estimated it to the nearest thousands. So obviously there is some difference between the actual sum and the estimated sum. There is some difference. But at the same time, this process was fast because you have rounded it to simpler numbers. It was easy to add them. But when you round it off to tens, the result that you get might be more accurate. The result might be more close to 15,792. But in that case, your sum will be more complicated because you do not have zeros at the ends and all. So depending on how fast you need the estimate. If you need the estimate very fast, then you will have to round it off to the higher places, like round it off to thousands or round it off to hundreds, depending on the numbers again. But if you need more accuracy, then you will have to round it off to the smaller places, like rounding it off to tens, right? So basically there are no rigid rules. It just depends on how much accuracy you need and how fast you need the estimate. So as I said, that if you round it off to tens, rounding off to tens might be slower because you would need more time to make the calculations, but this is going to be more accurate. And it is just the opposite for the higher places like thousands or lakhs. So let us look at another example where we have to find the difference. So we have to estimate using general rule 28,292 and 21,496. Now here what we will do is we will take this example and we will try to solve this by rounding off to thousands, by rounding off to hundreds, and also by rounding off to 10,000s, and then we will see that what are the results that we get in each of the cases. So here also, even before we make an estimate, first let us calculate the real sum. So by our traditional method, so 28,292 and 21,496. So when you subtract these two, what you get is 6,796. So this is our real difference. Now let us try to round off these numbers. So in the first case, let us try to round it off to 10,000s because we have 28,292, 21,496, right? So if we round it off, so rounding off to 10,000s place. So what would be 28,292? So in that case, you can say that 28,292 lies somewhere between 20,000 and 30,000, right? So this lies between 20,000 and 30,000. So to which one is it more closer? So it is closer to 30,000. So 28,292 can be approximated to 30,000. What about 21,000? So this also lies between 20,000 and 30,000, but this is more close to 20,000. So this can be approximated as 20,000. So when you find the difference is 10,000. So that is the difference that you get. Okay, now let us round it off. Now let us find the same difference by rounding off to hundreds. So when you round it off to hundreds, in that case 28,292, you would say that this 28,292 lies between 28,200 and 28,300. So this is the range, and 28,292 will be more closer to this. Therefore, you can approximate it as 28,292 would be more close to 28,300 because 292, because in between these two would be 28,250. So you have 292, so this will be more closer to 28,300. So you can write it as 28,300. What about 21,496? So when you again round it off to nearest hundreds, this would lie somewhere between 21,400 and 21,500. And 496 will again be very close to 21,500. So you can write it as 21,500. Now when you subtract this, you get 6,800. So in the first scenario, you found the difference as 10,000. In the second scenario, you found the difference as 6,800. Now in the third scenario, let us round it off to the nearest thousands. So rounding off to nearest thousands. Now in the first case, we rounded off to 10,000s. So now we will round it off to thousands. So in that case, we can say that 28,292, it lies between 28,000 to 29,000. So this is the range. It has to lie somewhere between 28,000 and 29,000, because now we are considering the nearest thousands place. Now looking at this number, you can say that it is more closer to 28,000. So you can approximate it as 28,000. Similarly, 21,496. This would lie between 21,000 and 22,000. And 21,000, and in between would be 21,500. So if you look at it, this lies before 21,500. So it is more close to 21,000. So this would be 21,000. Now when you subtract this, you get 7,000. So now you see that we have estimated the same two numbers and found their difference, but the differences are different. So in first case it is 10,000, second case 6,800, and third case is 7,000. And what should have been the actual difference? The actual difference is 6,796. Now let us talk about the accuracy, and let us also talk about how fast each of these scenarios were. So first let's talk about accuracy. Now in terms of accuracy, out of these three values, which is nearest to the accurate value, because this is the accurate value. So nearest to this is this. So this is the most accurate. And which is the least accurate? So the least accurate is this. And which is like medium. So this is the most accurate, this is the least accurate, and this is like okay. This is also accurate but not very accurate. At the same time, it is not very far away from the accurate value. So it is like okay. Again, now when we talk about the time taken, I mean which process was more quick. So in that case, the most quick was this one, because you had all zeros. So it was very easy to, find out the difference of the two. So this was the quickest. Which was the slowest? This would have been the slowest, because you have the least number of zeros, so the subtraction actually took its own time. So this was the slowest, and this was again like quick enough, not the quickest, but it was quick enough because you had enough zeros. Now considering the three scenarios, which one? So there is nothing right or wrong. Each of these is a guess, because none of these is the accurate difference between the two. So the accurate difference is actually this. But out of these three guesses, which one do you think is a more sensible guess? Guess where the accuracy is also okay and the speed is also okay. So yes, this would be the most sensible guess. So that is why I told you that when we talk about rounding of numbers, there are no rigid rules. You can round them off to thousands, you can round them off to hundreds, you can even round them off to tens. It depends on how much accuracy do you need and how fast you need to give that estimate. So if you have very less time, then maybe you cannot give an accurate value, but you can quickly do and give an approximate guess. So here the most sensible guess would be the third scenario, where we rounded it off to the nearest thousands. So this is an example which illustrates that how rounding off to different places can give you different results and how the accuracy varies in each of the cases.
Thank you. Please visit examfear.com for free quality education. You can learn with a simple 4-step learning process wherein you can watch video lessons, you can ask your questions, you can refer notes, and you can take a free online test. We have content for class 6 to 12 on physics, chemistry, mathematics, and biology along with practical videos. So please subscribe to our channel for daily updates. Thank you.